Congratulations. And now it's time to reveal the winner of the George Mahon Award for Extraordinary Public Service. Before we do this, I'd like to recognize past winners. You look in your book and you can see it's a pretty impressive list. And we've got quite a few of the former winners that are here in the room with us. So I'd ask at this time, if you're a former George Mahon Award winner, please stand and let us recognize you one more time. The George Mahon Award is named for a man of great political influence, noted for his integrity in West Texas, Washington, D.C., and beyond. And it was that name that the Lubbock chapter of AWC selected with the Mahon family's permission to honor Lubbock citizens who over a lifetime continually contribute to their community. We prepared a special video to tell you about this year's winner.
I've served on many, many boards and been a part of many, many organizations, and seldom or never have I ever found anyone who reaches the level of Brian in terms of the time that he takes to study the issues, to educate himself, and then to craft intelligent arguments in favor of his position.
I think that for both my mother and father, it's their dedication to the duty. That I remember growing up in the early 60s to where we might go out for a family dinner and then we would have to wait out in a station wagon while Dad stopped by to do a house call to check in on a young child or an infant. I think their greatest accomplishments for both my mother and father have been the degree to which they've continued to reach out no matter what the circumstances, and it was never so much about politics as it was about betterment and about health. That for my father, it was involvement in the dealing with the polio epidemic, which at the time in the 50s was just such a scary thing that haunted, I think, all of us as a country. And then for my mother, it was the interest to see that we didn't forget about the roots that we came from and the efforts that she's made throughout her life to stay involved in historical societies and other organizations so that people understand the foundations from which we all come from.
Well, what sets Brian apart from many people that would be deserving of such an award is the fact that he's such a dynamic individual, I think. I really think he got it from his family, because he's mentioned his family in the past. He likes to talk about them. And I think they really sort of created an environment for him and an education as to the importance of what you can do for the people around you. And I think that's become a very important part of his life. And he's very, very serious about that.
Bob, of course, is a pediatrician, but I knew him after he pretty much retired, and he's a local historian. Betty she's the one who will take upon herself any cause that she believes is just and further that cause. Brian is a result of his upbringing. You know, heaven forbid that Brian would ever die or move away from West Texas, because we need Brian here. He gives us here a different perspective that I think that West Texas needs.
The Mahon Award goes to Dr. Robert L. and Betty Carr and their son, Dr. Brian Carr. Brian said, good. Brian, a Lubbock psychologist, says of his father, "My dad has been a shining example for me in my service to the community. Dr. Robert Carr's service includes nation, state, community, and church. He was in the U.S. Navy Amphibious Forces on active duty in the Pacific Theater from 1943 to 46. Brian noted that his father was born in 1927 in Amarillo and arrived in Lubbock in 1932 at the ripe old age of 5. He and his extended family had served our community in so many ways. Brian notes, even now at 87, he remains active as a physician, a church member, and a strong community supporter. Robert is medical director for the ADHD clinic at Lubbock Children's Health Clinic. His professional recognitions include the 1993 Hippocratic Award from the Lubbock Crosby Garza County Medical Society and the Physician Recognition Award from the American Medical Association in 1997, in 1992, and 1995. Time for another one, I guess. His wife, Betty Sullivan Carr, provided a stable home life for their children, which in addition to Brian includes Dr. Robert V. Carr, a Lubbock orthopedic surgeon, Julie Carr Copper, a registered nurse, 7 granddaughters, and all kinds of other kids down the line. Betty continues to model responsibility to her children at home, at church, and in the larger community. Bayless Elementary School PTA named the Carrs Family of the Year in 1963. She and her husband share a love for history, both providing leadership and serving as volunteers at Texas Tech University National Ranching Heritage Center. In 1992, Betty was named a distinguished alumnus by Texas Tech's History Department. She put her education at Texas Tech on hold for marriage and children, returning to the campus 30 years later and graduating beside her son, Brian. Since the pressure's on you to not let her beat you out. Okay, good. That's right. Since 1991, she's been a member of the Administrative Board and Church Historian Archivist at First United Methodist Church. She was president of the Chamber of Commerce Women's Division, 1983-84. She served on many city commissions as well. Like his parents, Brian's community service is extensive. He most recently led a grassroots campaign to keep the Lubbock Health Department open to provide essential public health services. Brian's efforts were recognized in the Texas Observer and the Texas Medical Society Journal. With gratitude for their community spirit, we present the George Mahon Award for a lifetime of community service to Dr. Robert L. Carr, Betty Carr, and Dr. Brian Carr. Please accept our heartfelt thanks as you come forward to accept the Mahon Award given by our presenting sponsors, Beaton Bow Homes, Covenant Health System, and Suddenlink Communications. Congratulations to all of you.
I can tell you that life in the Carr household is never an idle thing. We've always been very busy. As I said, growing up in the 60s, if you were raised, or if you were born and lived in Lubbock between 52 and 92, chances were that sometime or another you went down to the children's clinic on Avenue Q and were seen, whether it was after hours or on the weekend. And I learned a lot from my dad and mother in the course of my work as a psychologist. One thing I learned was to stay calm. And so I think that it's like I learned that the definition of a first-time parent is that they will call the pediatrician at 3 o'clock in the morning when the temperature spikes at 99. A multiple-time parent, unless the bone's sticking out and blood squirting across the room, they say, we'll just wrap it up and call Dr. Carr on Monday if we need to. So it's been a pleasure of service to the community, and I know that my mother's inspiration of dropping out from Tech in 47, returning in 75, and in 1980, she sat next to me at graduation. And that was rather unique because they come to the part where they ask the parents of the graduates to stand up. And I was pawing her and I said, Mother, stand up. And she said, I'm not standing up. You know, I'll be the only one down on the floor to do it. And then, of course, later on, she earned her master's in history. And we've told her that even now in their 80s, that if she pesters Dad too much, we're going to have her go back and get her doctorate. Because she truly loves education. And certainly, I think with all the family, my brother and sister and everybody else, this is a great honor. Glad to have it.
Lubbock has always been my home, and I really have enjoyed living here with my family. There couldn't be a better place. Thank you very much.
Actually, I'm the talker in the family. But I'm totally surprised. Really, I thought this was Brian's night or lunch, and I was all prepared for that. I was not prepared for that, for what you have given our family. And we are deeply honored truly, to be a member that's lived, I've lived here since 1946. Lubbock is a wonderful place. It was a great place to bring up our children. And at this point, we have 14 great-grandchildren. When we have 7 granddaughters, someone's always pregnant. We thank the Communication for Women for this honor. We are truly grateful. Thank you.
Thank you, Carr family, for your service to our community. I have 2 announcements. One is we ask that you leave the centerpiece on the table. However, if you would like the fresh flowers without the container, you can take those. Just beware that they might be dripping with water. So I don't know if it's worth it to you, but you're welcome to those. And we would like it if our honorees can come up after the luncheon for a quick group photo. And at this time, I have one more request of our honorees. Would you please stand where you are seated? If you want an award today, would you please stand up?